welcome. If you're new to this channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Logan. This is Timeless Personal Growth and Development. Today I got an interesting video for you guys. Today we're talking about you don't get to define yourself. Other people do. So let's get started. Well, why did I choose to do this topic today? Well, I remember having a conversation with a friend a while back. We're having a conversation about essentially defining yourself. Why we should be able to define ourselves and choose who we are as people. And I completely agree with that. We do get to choose who we are as people. But sometimes who we get to choose, how we get to define ourselves can sometimes be a little subjective. Because we always want to define ourselves in a good way, in a positive light, in a way that we want to see ourselves, and basically not always be able to see the reality of what's going on, the reality of who we are, the little things that we may not be able to see, and other people have a better objective view of who we are. I'll give you a little example. When I was younger, when I was in my late teens, there's two things I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to be a pro wrestler, and I wanted to be in the army. That's how I envisioned myself. That's how I saw myself, essentially. So I pursued those two things, but while I was pursuing those things, I was always kind of involved with kids. I was either working as an assistant scout leader or I was working at summer camp. I was doing things that kind of involved working with kids. Kind of not as my primary focus, but kind of more on the side of what I was doing. On the side of my primary pursuits of wrestling and the army, because those were like my real big interests, and that's how I saw myself. That's how I defined myself, was through those two things. But I would always hear from people that I was working with, people who were able to observe me and watch me with younger people, with children. I'll always hear these comments, and these are comments I never heard in the military. I never heard this with wrestling. I only heard this with I'm still working with kids. It would come to me as like, yeah, Logan, you're pretty good at that. And I'd be like, good at what? This, your interaction with kids. You might have something here. I'd be like, okay, I appreciate the comment, but I shrugged it off, and never saw working with kids as being a very, a primary career. Never saw it. I enjoyed it, but I never saw it as the vision for my life of how do you define myself. I never saw it like that. And I kept hearing those comments over and over and over again. And I realized at a certain point that people are seeing something that I'm not seeing. That I want to be able to have those same comments when it comes to the things I'm focusing on. Like whether it's wrestling or whether it was the army, I wanted those comments, and I wasn't getting that. I wasn't hearing that. I wasn't hearing oh, you're naturally talented at it, which I wasn't at all. But I would always hear those comments over and over and over again, and over time it made me think maybe people are seeing something in me that I'm not necessarily seeing. I want to define myself in a certain way, but people are seeing something else and defining me in a way that I'm not seeing, essentially. And that's why essentially I made this topic of this video, because we always want to choose who we want to be. But there's always sides to our personalities, little nuances, little mannerisms, little aspects of ourselves that we may not necessarily see. And it actually could be things that are actually not very endearing, and things that we may not actually like about ourselves, and things that people tell us that we may not actually like, and it hurts our ego, and we don't want to accept that. No, we're not okay with that, because we don't want to accept that, because that's not how we define ourselves. That was not part of our life view of ourselves. And that's why it's important to drop those expectations. You choose what you want to do and who you envision yourself to be, but I think it's important to actually listen to outside sources. Listen to other people, because they may be seeing something that you're not. And you do have a subjective view about yourself, because you're only seeing basically what you want to see. And we don't like accepting criticism. We don't like flaws in our personality. No, we don't want to accept that. It makes us uncomfortable. Checks our ego. No, it's not fun. It's not great. I'll give you another example. Is recently I started doing jiu-jitsu about 2 months ago. And I figured, I'm a physical guy. I've been in shape my whole life. I can do this. One of the hardest things I've ever had to learn. And going into it, how do I envision myself? Oh, I'm in shape. I'm going to kick everybody's ass over and over and over again. I'm getting my ass whipped. I'm getting tapped out. That's not how I envision myself. And there are moments that I can feel when I'm at practice, I'm training, I'm rolling with someone. I can feel that I'm not doing very good. Well, that's not how I envision myself going into this. That's not how I define myself. I would learn and pick up on this right away, and I didn't. And I'm not. And that's why I had to drop those expectations of myself and just accept it for what it is. Like right now at jiu-jitsu, I suck. But it's okay. It's all a learning process. It's okay to suck. It's not how I envisioned myself going into it. I thought it would be a lot easier than it was, but it was an ego check. Drop those expectations, and you're gonna get humbled in jiu-jitsu. Definitely. You don't get to walk around through life and telling people, yeah, I'm this, yeah, I'm that. No, other people are going to decide that for you. You choose what path you want to go to, but other people are going to define who you are and how you can't control. How people are going to view you. You control your behavior, but how someone is going to view you when it comes to that behavior, everyone's going to have their own opinion. Some people are going to like you, some people aren't. Some people are going to see things in you that you don't see. Those things that you don't see could be very endearing, or can actually tick you off from something you don't want to accept because you don't like it, because that's not the expectations that you had for yourself. And always realize that it's when it comes to other people, when it comes to your parents, when it comes to your friends, they'll always have I'm not going to say a better perspective, but a perspective that you may not have about yourself. And they're always going to see you in their blind spot. You're not able to see your blind spot. They can see your blind spot. And you're going to need those people to check that blind spot for you, what you're not seeing in whatever pursuit and how you're living life, no matter how you're defining yourself. You need those people to check your blind spot. I'll give you another example. Is when you're in a relationship with someone. It's always good to introduce that person to family and friends, because when you're in love and you're in the honeymoon phase, you're not going to see things clearly. Your brain and your emotions are going to be flooded with chemicals, and it's not going to be able to see. It's going to prevent you to see things objectively. So you invite them to see family and friends, to meet them, so they get a sense about that person that you cannot see, so they can see that blind spot. And you have to be okay when they see things that, that might be a red flag in that person that you're seeing now, that you're dating. You got to be okay and be able to accept that. Because you got to be able to realize they're seeing something that you're not. They're checking that blind spot. Oh, there's something in that blind spot that's not okay. Instead of getting angry and upset and frustrated with them and not being able to accept that, you got to be able to see and realize they're seeing something that you're not, because you can't see things clearly because you're too emotionally invested in that person. That person is able to define things that you can't. You need to let them define things and be okay with that, and let them check that blind spot. And on that note, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, do me a big favor, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. It's going to help me in the algorithms a lot. Get those views up, get those likes up, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good one.